Okay, let's get started. So really excited today to have a cooperation with Virtual Forge. My name is David Milano. I'm the CEO of REALTECH Inc. here in the US. And today we are going to be discussing REALTECH and Virtual Forge, a little bit about our Transport Manager product, as well as the Transport Threat Detection from Virtual Forge. Today, let's go through the agenda. So we're going to tell you a little bit about REALTECH and Virtual Forge together, and then we'll discuss our Transport Management solution, which is an automation, approvals, and auditing tool for SAP. And then we will pass it over to Thomas. Thomas, if you're there, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hello from Heidelberg. My name is Thomas Fritsch. I'm content manager at Virtual Forge, and I will take the second part today, explaining you more about the dangers and security issues in SAP Transport Management.
Great. Thanks, Thomas. And we just announced a press release last week that we have a strategic partnership with Virtual Forge. So we're really excited about having our automation tools and their security tools work together and offer that to SAP customers out in the US. So a little bit about REALTECH, and then we'll go through our REALTECH Transport Management solution, and then we'll pass it over to Thomas so he can do the Virtual Forge piece. Again, we're going to try to hold this to 30 minutes, so I'm going to talk very quickly and save some time for some questions. So a little bit about REALTECH, founded in 1994. North American headquarters is in Malvern, PA, or west of Philadelphia. For our SMARTCHANGE solution, we have about 2,000 worldwide customers, presence in 4 countries. Our European headquarters is in Leimen, Germany, which is just in between Heidelberg and Waldorf, and we're publicly traded in Germany. Our REALTECH solutions, or the portfolio that we offer here in the US, is SMARTCHANGE, which is change process management, transport management, which we'll focus on today, synchronization management, and then we've added the Virtual Forge transport threat detection into our portfolio, which we think is a great addition to helping customers, not only from an automation, approvals, and auditing standpoint, but also from a security standpoint, and Thomas will talk a little bit more about that. We also do OSDB migrations, upgrades, managed services for BASIS, SAP HANA, and the cloud here in the US. So we're not only a product company here in the US, but we're also a consulting company that we help customers, especially migrations to the cloud or to S4 HANA. Of course, it's the big topic these days. So let's go to the next slide. Today, we're really going to focus on transport management, but the THEGUARD SMARTCHANGE is comprised of 3 modules. Now, with the addition of transport threat detection, it's 4 modules. So change process management, transport management, also synchronization management for dual retrofitting of dual maintenance landscapes. They're all based off of what we call the IQ library, which I call the hard drive or the repository of where we collect all the data. So no additional hardware. The tool sits inside its own namespace, has its own RFCs, and the IQ library really keeps track of everything at the object level, all historical data, all users, all dependencies, really from creation to completion. So each set of modules has its own integrated reporting feature that is based off what we call the IQ library. Here is just what we call transport management, which is the technical SAP move machine. Really, we centralize it on any system, but most recently it's been Solution Manager. Again, and we have our own RFCs, our own user. We don't rip out or replace anything you have today. Our security is a single authorization object. We say independent of SAP system or release, but a lot of customers are 7.0, NetWeaver 7.0 and above. So we work with those that level up. Out of the box, flexible approval workflows, simple to use, looks like SAP. We have small clients with 2 landscapes, but then we have some clients with up to 40 landscapes using our solutions. Some of the key features: dependency checking, return code forecasting, cross-system object locking, of course, overtaker detection, and then we're going to talk a little bit about today critical object definition and how the Virtual Forge transport threat detection would work in conjunction or helps with our critical object definition tool, and Thomas will touch a little bit about that. So some other features: transparency and visibility from top down, creation and completion, down to the object level, packages or bundling of transports, rejecting, revoking approvals. The one thing about Transport Manager is it comes with some SAP best practice workflows that we've gained experience over the years from some of our customers. So when we do these projects, we help our customers understand how a true SAP change in transport management process should work and help them optimize their processes along the way. This is just a standard, typical customer workflow. Developer releases a transport, it gets automatically imported into quality, triggers approval steps, what we call content approval, and then technical approval. We send emails along the way, and then it gets automatically imported into production. So just a simple workflow that we like to stress is very easy for our product to handle. But then, we also handle very complex workflows, and of course, it's just drag and drop technology within our tool to build the workflows. One of the features is called return code forecasting. It's a completeness check. We're able to look at SAP dependencies within transports ahead of time before the transport goes into the system and let you know what is missing and where those objects are missing in the other transports so that you can put them in together into the system and have a successful return code. So it's one of the key features that a lot of our competitors have, and we feel it does a really good job from our customers' feedback. Cross-system object locking, you're able to look at a transport that is touched on one development system, and we'll be able to tell you that it's been touched on the other development system. So, if you have, it's basically ahead of time before the release, we can do cross-system object locking. We have a monitor where you can go in and see that information. This is just a little bit about our architecture. We live on one system. We'll connect to all your environments and manage transports or changes all from one location. So it's a central point of basically a central point of access for our SMARTCHANGE solution. Integration. So today we're talking a lot about, virtual forges on the line. We can integrate with a lot of different tool sets, right? ServiceNow, Virtual Forge, BMC Remedy. We do it via either standard ABAP code, if it's an ABAP solution, or we can do it standard web services, WSDL files and web services. So if you have a ServiceNow in place or another tool, and you want to integrate to a transport tool that has proactive technical checks, that is our SMARTCHANGE solution, and we can just do a standard integration there. So I'm trying to go pretty quickly through this, and now I'm going to show you our tool. And Thomas, I'm on track. I have 7 minutes before I have to pass it to you. So
I'm impressed.
I have a timer right next to me, Thomas. You won't believe it. So, okay, so we'll just start with a basic end-to-end, let's say, workflow inside a Transport Manager. So we come into play when you're releasing your transport. So you create your task, you release your task, nothing happens. But when you release the transport request, that is where what we call the TM body would pop up. And here's the TM body with selected projects and destinations that are freely creatable within our tool. So you can see we have a maintenance project with some destinations for different groups, or we have a minor project for Asia Pacific or Latin America, or even a major project for a fall or spring release. So when you, as a developer, when you release your transports, all you need to do is know that I say which bucket to choose to direct the workflow to go to the appropriate approvers. The next step is what we call packages, where you can predefine packages or groups of transports and release them directly into the package. So here, I selected my maintenance project and my basis destination. I'm releasing the transport into that project destination combination, which means it inherits the right approvers along the way. Here, an email was sent from our solution, letting the appropriate approver know that they have to approve inside the tool. We go inside our own transaction, go into the monitor section, and you can see here there's on the right side multiple transports. It looks like SAP, and then what we call transport levels on the left side. Here, this is a couple additional transport levels because we have a 5-box model that we're representing inside of our solution. But the transport that was released went into the signature status of quality prod support. So it's a break fix transport. In this example, what we're going to do is just double click on it. You get more tabs, request header. You're able to see some additional information. I'm going to go ahead and approve the transport by right clicking on it. Once I do that, it drops down to the current status. It's waiting for an import job to push it into the quality system. We're going to fast forward a little bit here because we're actually doing this step as a basis person. So we're pushing it into the system, not doing an automated job. You can see as a basis person, you can go into what we call the system queue. Just hit the truck and it'll put it into the environment. Once that is complete, we send an email to the appropriate approver and the developer, letting them know about the return code and all the information that's inside the transport or the return code. You can see now that it's been imported into the system. Just play this. Okay, and then it drops down into what we call the production queue status. This is a holding status, so it's in quality, it's being tested, some things are happening, but it's not quite ready for its approvals inside of TM yet for production. So here I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. I double click on the request. I'm able to go in and see the action log within our tool, what exactly happened so far, date and time. I go in, I see who is waiting for the approvals for production, which is a development manager and a change approval board. Here at the import information, it went into quality, return code 0. Here's some additional information, what we call TM attributes. You're able to go in and fill out additional information about the request. So I'm just going to go ahead and fast forward a little bit here because we're going to attach things. We're going to put links. We're going to even list testers or put a ticket ID in here. So here we can completely track everything inside of our transport management solution here. Okay, so now I filled out all the information as a developer and I'm ready to move it to signature. Of course, we're able to move it from current directly to signature for final approvals if we didn't need all this information. But okay, I do a status change. It is now triggered an email to the development manager to come in and approve the transport. As the development manager, I could right click, make what we call content approval. Of course, you'll see Milano and all these approvers. We have segregation of duties. I'm an administrator, and this is a demo, right? But we can set it up so the security is by different people, and only those people can approve the appropriate content or technical approval. So now it triggers an email to the technical approval. And the change approval board went into a meeting, they discussed it, and they approved it. And now it's waiting for it drops down to current, it's waiting for the appropriate import job into production. Here we're going to push it in. It's got system queue is being imported into production. It triggers an email. Okay. And then we're just going to show you a quick report here, what we call a one-button report, where you're able anytime to go in and see all the information about the transport that happened, the action log, the import history, what system it went into, date and time, any SAP attributes or any notes that we had, and of course all the what we call TM attributes, and these are hot links to our website, or the document is all stored in SAP Office. So that is very quick, Thomas, and I did it within 1 minute. So I carried my 15-minute limit here. So let me see here. Let me just stop.
So then I will switch to my PC.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, David. Yeah, so now let's come to the security aspects of the transport system, which is normally a very much underestimated subject in the SAP world. So, but let's start very briefly with an introduction of Virtual Forge. So we were founded in 2001, have more than 100 employees today and more than 15,000 installations worldwide. Our focus is on products and consulting around SAP security. The products covers aspects like secure code, secure system settings, secure interfaces, and that's the subject of today, secure transports. So what is the general risk in the transport system? So when we talk about security, customers have a strong focus on their production system. So the production system is protected by, the network aspect is considered, and the database security is considered. You have a proper authorization concept set up on production. So a lot of customers take care for production very well with regard to security. If we have a look to the other systems, and here mainly on the development system, we recognize that security is not that aspect here. And even if you take care for a lot of these aspects, normally users on the development system have many more authorizations than in production. And there is another aspect. Normally developers can bypass any lack of authorizations by just writing an ABAP that will do the things for them. So even if you do not have authorizations for some critical transactions on development, you can normally do everything via ABAP. And last but not least, another critical aspect, you receive transports from third-party providers or from system integrators. Companies that maybe have outsourced things to other countries like India, China, Russia, and so on. So what we do is we really protect production against the things that might come from here, from your development system or from external providers. So of course, I stated here, SAP Transport Security is there, but it's not there. What does that mean? So nearly every tool in the transport and change management section provides a critical object list. So here you see the object list from Charm. Here we only added some own objects. Here you see the critical object list from the TMS, from SAP TMS. The only content that is delivered and shipped with that table are is the table itself, the table that contains critical objects. So at least SAP wants to prevent people from manipulating that critical objects through transport requests. But this is already everything. In REALTECH Transport Manager, like in other tools, they provide critical objects, and I know what I'm talking about because I worked for REALTECH also for 20 years, but critical or security was not the focus. We provided that critical object list, but never provided content here. And I was often asked by customers, yeah, can you tell me what are critical objects? And the only example I had was numbering range settings. But that's important. Numbering range settings is a dangerous, but not with regard to security. Yeah. So, and this was one reason why I decided to switch to Virtual Forge 3 years ago, because Virtual Forge is an expert in security, and I wanted to have answers to that question. What is security critical in the transport system? So sometimes when I explain that there might be a great risk coming from your own development system, people tell me, yeah, but if I don't trust my developers, I have a big problem anyway. Yeah, but that's the wrong attitude, I think, because here you can see some examples what insiders did in their systems. They stole data. So the damage here is up to $2 billion. So yeah, that is always the point. Yeah, so they do not really see the danger. In every company, you will have unsatisfied people for any reason, however, tries to compromise you. Okay, let's just quickly talk about some security issues we have detected. Let me start with one example. And we had to report it to SAP because it was so critical that we had to do that. So we found a possibility to transport any type of table content and completely unnoticed. So you cannot see in the transport request that these table entries are inside. So I will show you an example. So here I have maintained, not really in detail, but the main thing is visible, table PA0008 with the salaries information. So my annual salary is $50,000. So I have already prepared a transport request for that system. If we have a look into that transport request, you see it's only a role inside. I can double click. Here you see a role. I can double click that role, and I have all the tables that defines the role. But there is nothing really suspicious. So if I import that transport request, shouldn't take that long. Okay, here we are. So let me switch back to my salary table. I have to do a refresh in SE16. And if we look into that record again, you see my salary has been increased by 20%. So how can this happen? So we only imported a role. So if we have a look again into the transport, we have these tables here. And the important thing is, if you have a look here, it states it's only a key simulation. A key simulation means that this data you see here is not stored persistently in the transport tables. It's another table where you define which tables makes up your logical object. And this table is the table OBJSL. And if we here filter on the role, you see all the tables that we saw in the object list. And you see also here the key, which contains an ampersand. The ampersand will be replaced by the role name. So this is not only true for roles, it's true for all kinds of logical customizing objects. So what we did to manipulate that transport request, we just extended that list here via ABAP by table PA0008, and then we exported it, and that's the other critical part. It's even not the attacker who has to export a transport request to the role. He or she just waits until someone exports a role, and he will export then without any knowledge. He will export then the additional table too. So the only place where you can see that this table was transported is the import log of the request, or even the export log. So if I search here for PA008, I have one finding here. So where is it here? Yeah, and you see this is just a transport with only one object, one role, and this log is already very huge. You can imagine how that is in larger transport requests. And the critical thing is now, even if you recognize that table PA008 was manipulated, yeah, maybe someone will also take the transport system into account. Then you go to SE03 and search for all transport requests that contains that table. And the SE03 will say that table was not found in any transport request. It's because it's not persistently stored in the transport table EO71 like other objects. It's just a temporary dynamical information about the object we see here always. And who starts examining all import logs if the SE03 says, no, that object was not transported by any transport request. So I have to hurry a little bit, but I want to show you a second example. In single sign-on scenarios, it's very easy to adopt the identity of another user, because all single sign-on systems or solutions have one property in common. You have to map the external ID of users to the appropriate SAP user ID. So single sign-on means if I log into my system, you do not see it now here on that screen, it's here. I'm immediately logged in without any credentials, the need of providing credentials. I'm just in. So let me transport again another request. I called him IM2 users. If I start the import of that one, sorry, I have to use some import options because it's coming from a development system with another SAP version. So if this transport has been imported and I log in now, you see I'm not immediately logged in. I have now a choice between my user and user substar. And of course, you can do that with any user. So what did we do here? The table where the mapping of the external ID, in this case, it's subnet weaver single sign-on. So it's table USRACL. We assigned my external ID also to user substar. And the result is I have the choice. And of course, you can do it with any user. If substar is locked as it should be, you can even transport the unlock of user SAP. Yeah. So here you see already every protection you apply to your productive system, most of them can be disabled, made invalid by just transporting the appropriate settings. Okay, so that should be all for now. I just want to show you two more examples, just explaining them, not showing them. For now, for MS SQL Server SAP systems running on MS SQL Server, we detected a possibility to delete the target database with just one transport entry. This transport entry transports some SQL statements that you can define before in a certain table. And if you transport this object, there is an after import method running after the import of your object that will execute that SQL command. So you can imagine if your SQL command is drop database PRD, and this statement will be executed after the import, your production system is no longer available. It's not no more there. We were very shocked when we saw that, and I get in trouble with my internal IT because I killed one of our test systems. Yeah, and then there are other examples. For example, with transaction SU24, you can disable authority checks in specific transactions so that they will no longer be executed. And the dangerous thing is, and here a simple critical object list check would fail because of too many false positives, you can do multiple activities in transaction SU24. You can define a proposal for the authorization administrator if he inserts that transaction into a role. So you can have proposal values defined by the person who customized SU24. That's a very harmless activity, and a lot of SAP users really use that method. But in the same transaction, you can really deactivate checks on individual authority objects. And in the transport, the object that will be tracked in your transport request is the same in both situations. So that object might be dangerous for your production because someone disables authority checks, or it might not because someone is only transporting proposal values. So what we do in transport threat detection is now we really examine the content of the object, and we can see if there was a disabling of an authorization check, which is dangerous, we would report it and send an email, or if someone only maintained proposals for PFCG. There's not really much to say about the architecture of transport threat detection because, yeah, it's really the architecture of the tool is very easy, very simple. What we do is we check the transport directory or even multiple transport directories for new transport files that arrive because someone has exported a new transport request, or you have moved a transport into your transport directory that you received before by your third-party provider. And then we scan that file with regard to, I think in the security area, it's up to 45 or 50 test cases for now. So we check for 50 critical situations. If we detect such a situation, we will send out emails to definable users. Yeah, so we have control about everything that is introduced into your landscape, either third-party transports or your own transport requests. So when I talked about the 45 to 50 aspects, this is only an excerpt of all these test cases, which I try to put in some groups. So there are test cases that check if there is some kind of code execution, normally done during the import. So either by user DDIC, or you can transport start transactions for other users. So when another user starts a transaction, logs into the system, he doesn't know that you have assigned to him a standard start transaction that will be executed in the dark without the knowledge of that user. You can manipulate job data. I also was successful in defining a complete job on the development system, and I transported that job into production. Then we have a group dealing with logical objects like file names, paths, just the example with the logical file names. If you have a daily or monthly job that prints out critical data or store critical data in a certain directory where you don't have access to, you just change the logical file name. So the logical file name keeps the same, but the underlying physical file is exchanged by a transport, so that your application does no longer store the critical data, the sensitive data, in the directory like it did the years before. The data is redirected into another directory, so the attacker might have access to this directory and can then steal the critical data. We have manipulations of authorizations. So the easiest example, authorizations are buffered for each user in the user authorization buffer. And this data will only be invalid periodically after, I guess, 2 hours. So if you transport entries for that authorization buffer, you can very easily add authorizations to your user that you do not really have in production, because SAP accesses the buffer information. And if you think about that first example I have shown you, the hidden transport of tables, of course you can combine these things with the hidden transport of tables. You can all transport all these things unnoticed by using that attack I have shown you in the first example. So then we have also a big category with getting unauthorized system access, but let's go on here. Yeah, what are the benefits of transport threat detection? You really are protected from scratch against all these issues, against all these threats that we will find. And you can imagine we have a research department that really focus on these highly risky aspects. Yeah? So you really get the knowledge about what is critical in transport, and you can enable it immediately, because as you have seen on that one slide, we're just running in the background. And if we detect something, we report it to definable users. Yeah. So there is no big issue with train people, changing processes, and so on. You can start today with transport threat detection. It reduces not only the risk of third-party providers, which might ship malicious transport requests, it also protects you against insider attacks. Some aspects, like the one I have explained with the hidden tables, so I told you that we had to report it to SAP. So meanwhile, they have fixed it, but they can only fix it in a way that you recognize the problem during import. So either, depending on some TMS settings, you get an import error, which might be not that good if you just deploying a large release into your production system. Or you can customize the TMS settings in a way that you receive a warning about that, which is, in my opinion, not enough to protect you. So yeah, how to start? So I can show you a quick. I let you just have a quick look into the transport threat detection. But there's really not much to explain. It's just a simple user interface. Let me just check here. We are. So transport threat detection. And you see the only thing you have to customize is, and this value is only of interest for the first run, how many days should we look back? So if you want, you can start scanning all your transports of the last year, for example. After the first run, we only start scanning new files on a periodically basis. Here you can define the transport directories you want to monitor. So what I have to say here, of course, if you install transport threat detection only on one system, the system must have access to all these transport directories. So you have to define a logical file or a logical path to the other transport directories. And then if there's a share or a mount, we can also access remote transport directories. And you can specify which checks we should do for you. So we divide our checks in different so-called test case groups, which covers either all of the transport of the issues of the threats or just a group of them, a part of them. And that's already all. Besides the fact in the IMG, you have to define the receiver of the emails. So you see there's really not much to do to introduce TTD. Okay, so what could be a next step? So of course, both of us, REALTECH and Virtual Forge, we provide individual web sessions. So if you want to learn more about that, if you have more detailed questions that need more, maybe some demo, we can schedule, of course, an individual web session for you. What we do at Virtual Forge for all of our products, we provide an initial vulnerability assessment. That means we scan your transports of the last 2 years and provide a report that will explain what we have detected there. That vulnerability assessment is not that powerful as TTD. We have some limitations here, but you can already get a very clear picture of your situation. What we do both, REALTECH and Virtual Forge, we also offers proof of concept so that you can test the software in your environment for a certain amount of time. And as Virtual Forge, again, we also offer consulting so that if you want to have someone that supports you in setting up a security concept, if you need a penetration test so that your systems will be under pressure to see where are the open gates into my system, we offer penetration tests for that. And these penetration tests, of course, covers all the aspects: code, system settings, interface settings, and the transport things. Yeah, so I think now I took longer. I needed longer than David. Sorry for that. Yeah, so I guess Carly has selected some questions. I have to unmute her. So Carly, I think we can hear you now.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right, so we have a few questions in the chat box. The first one I think is for Dave. Where is all the information stored on in every system or only the controller?
So in transport management, we store all the information on what we call the SMARTCHANGE controller. So all our tables are on all the systems, but the only table that or tables that get written to are the SMARTCHANGE controller.
Okay, and the next question is, how does TM calculate collision/overtake detection?
Sure. So the way we do that is on the release date or time, as well as the object that's in the transport.
All right, and I think this one is for both of you. Can TM integrate with all Virtual Forge products, including code profiling?
Yes, so I'll answer that, and Thomas, if you want to just elaborate a little bit. So both products are ABAP-based add-ons, so we can integrate them, not only the transport threat detection, but also the transport profiler and the code scanner as well. Thomas, do you have any additional info?
Yeah, so the code profile integration was already realized during my time at REALTECH. It's just integrated in the quality aspects that are checked by REALTECH. So it's just visible as an additional check aspect in that screen. Yeah. For transport threat detection, you have seen that on that slide. We are more running in the background and are not part of the transport workflow currently. We report the findings to definable people then. That's because we want to try first the situation. We want to get a picture of how people are working with both solutions together. Maybe finally we will also integrate these checks into the transport manager workflow later on.
Okay. What does transport threat detection read the information about the transport content remotely from the development system?
Oh, yeah, I missed to explain that. I think that's one key feature, and it's very important with regard to security. We do not read that information from any SAP system, so we read the transport files, the content of the files. We decompress the transport files, and then we check the content. So that enables us to examine third-party transport requests without the need to importing them into any system. Yeah? So we can scan them before because we read the data file of these transports. And that's also the solution that enables us to differ in that example where I said you can maintain this transaction SU24, you can maintain harmless things, but you can do critical things. Because we look into the data file, we can decide whether it's a critical activity in that object or not.
Okay, and can you send the threat detection results to an SIEM system?
Yeah, we can. Not from scratch, but we ship a body implementation, a default or a template for a body implementation. And here you can enable to send the finding results, so the threats we detect, also to a SIEM system.
Okay, and the final question is, what is the implementation effort for threat detection?
Yeah, I guess it has become clear already. So you have to install it depending on the number of transport directories and depending of if they can be reached from one central system. So in the best situation, you only have to install transport threat detection on one system. Yeah, and we ship our solution as an SAP add-on package. So you would just start transaction saint, and then you can install, starting with the installation. And I guess it has become clear that there is not much to customize or to configure. You just provide the values for that transaction I've showed you, and then you schedule that report.
Okay, great. And that is the last of the questions from the question box.
Okay. So, yeah, I hope this session could give you an insight about agile development and providing the tools, Transport Manager from REALTECH. And also, I hope it had become more clear that also in transport systems, there are a lot of security threats which you have to be aware of. I switch over to David again for final words.
Great, thanks, Thomas, and great demo. Yeah, REALTECH and Virtual Forge are really excited about this strategic partnership. We'd love to hear more feedback on how we can help you, and thank you for your time today.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.